In Brian De Palma's Carlito's Way, we follow Al Pacino, who plays Carlito Brigante, a former gangster who's done a 5-year stint in jail, 5 years out of a 30-year sentence. Out early thanks to his lawyer and friend Dave Kleinfeld, Carlito decides he's had enough of the gangster lifestyle and wants out, telling those who wish to suck him back into the life that he's retired and wants nothing to do with the game. He has a dream, a vision of leaving NYC with the love of his life, Gail, to the Caribbean and renting out cars. Before that, he needs to raise $75K. But Carlito's environment dooms him, forces him back into the world of crime, deceit and corruption. A young up-and-coming gangster, Benny Blanco from the Bronx, wants to warm up to Carlito, maybe even work on a new racket with him. But Carlito wants nothing to do with him, and when Benny gets heavy, Carlito threatens his life and has him thrown out of his club. Then there's Kleinfeld, coked out of his mind and later revealed to have been willing to sell Carlito out to the cops. This moron decides to rip off a mob boss and then kills him and his son, getting Carlito wrapped up in the affair, leading us to the film's climax, where our protagonist races to the train station, trying to outrun the Italian mobsters after him for the killing on the boat. He succeeds in doing so, seconds away from escape, finally, but at the last moment is tragically taken out by Benny Blanco of all people, who Carlito, in a twisted irony, allowed to live as part of his new outlook on life. Today I wanted to discuss if Carlito could have escaped, or whether he was always destined to meet his demise ever since he came out of prison. And the way I wanted to do this was to examine key mistakes Carlito made throughout the film, and he made a lot. Of course, hindsight is 2020. It's easy for us to criticize him when we can now, as he would say, see all the angles. And there are multiple ways to deal with the situation, and you never know how something is truly going to work out. So it's easy for us to say. And also, Carlito making mistakes makes sense. He really was losing his edge, in a manner of speaking. He stopped being able to see all the angles, and this came with the attempt to change his ways. Still though, looking back at the film, Carlito could have handled several situations differently. Even his entire philosophical outlook on life, the new way of doing things, was massively flawed. On one hand, he's a joint owner of a connected club. He hires a guy he used to work with in the old days, Pachanga, as his muscle. He mingles with crooks and criminals wanting to get a quick and fast amount of cash, and meanwhile, he's going around telling everyone he's retired. It's enough to make other gangsters suspicious, or at the very least, bemused. He has a code that he strictly follows, but he isn't a gangster anymore, and that code lands him in trouble numerous times. He did the wrong things for the right reasons, sure, but still the wrong things. As soon as he gets out, he is persuaded by his nephew to go to a deal, which ends badly. This scene sets the stage for the rest of the film. Just say no, Carlito, in all of these situations. He succumbs to peer pressure, a sense of loyalty to his kin, loyalty to the street code. But you're supposed to be leaving all this behind, essay. Carlito had his pride, his ego. He clung to an idea of how things should be done, rather than accepting the reality of what they were, like his number 2 backstabbing him, the old-timer Lalin wearing a wire, all these things. Times have changed. There was no reason why Carlito should have ever gone on that boat with Dave. Even Gail could see the angles. She tried to warn him, but because of his code, he felt he owed Kleinfeld. The pride and ego are representations of the old Carlito. Interestingly though, it's also the new Carlito that got him killed, his mercy, which he dispensed to Benny Blanco by letting him live in a situation where everyone, Pachanga, even Benny himself, knew he should have been killed. Like I mentioned in my previous video on Carlito's Way, Benny looked at Carlito and saw weakness. He even told him he was going to kill him. How can you let him live? Carlito threatens him. He gives him the bark, but Benny knows there's no bite behind Carlito's eyes. And Benny, funnily enough, is the only major male character who doesn't lie to Carlito, because he makes good on his word and kills him. Carlito was confused. He needed to pick one way or the other of living, not both, and in the environment he was in, it was impossible to change. He should have just gotten out of there ASAP. Hanging around in a connected area is asking for trouble. Just split. Get someone else to run the club. Come in after a few weeks and take your percentage. It's like when Tony Soprano comes out of his coma in The Sopranos, says every day is now a gift, and he changes his outlook on life. He stops to smell the roses, but the environment he is in just drags him down until he becomes regular old narcissistic toxic Tony. One of the biggest mistakes Carlito makes is letting Lalin go, the guy in the wheelchair who flipped and was wearing a wire. If he did it privately, which to be fair, it did look like he did do initially, that's a different story. But once Pachanga burst into the room, Lalin had to go. But instead, Carlito stops his muscle from killing Lalin. What kind of message does that send to Pachanga? What does it tell him about Carlito? About how he's changed? How he's over the hill and has lost his edge? This of course is relevant because Pachanga eventually works with Benny against Carlito. And it didn't just come out of nowhere. But Pachanga's betrayal is something I want to discuss in a future video, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss it. Another major mistake, not killing Kleinfeld after the boat incident. Obviously getting on the boat in the first place is a major blunder. Carlito himself says his instincts told him it was all wrong. I mean, who goes on such a risky business with a guy coked out of his mind anyway? But he did all of that, and when Kleinfeld dropped Carlito in it by killing the mob boss, Carlito wants nothing to do with him and calls them even. But this news is going to travel. Others will have known that that sleazy lawyer was going to pick up Tony Taglialucci after his prison escape. They will go to the lawyer to find out what happened. I'm not saying it would have saved Carlito, but him killing Kleinfeld before anybody started making moves would have sent a message to anyone who wants to know that the lawyer did something very wrong and Carlito punished him for it. But even by that point, it was probably too late. On some level, Carlito probably knew that he was living on borrowed time and he was a dead man walking. Like he says, "You just killed us both." Another mistake, going to the hospital to visit Kleinfeld and to say his piece. Sure, you can argue he wanted to look him in the eye and confront him to make sure Dave really did sell him out. It would have forever itched Carlito if he didn't. Just like how Neil in Heat just couldn't help but turn the car around and go after Wangro when he could have escaped from Hannah and the cops forever. And this of course dooms him. The hospital scene was apparently rewritten about 30 times to make it work. Even Al Pacino had problems with it, thinking that Carlito would never go to visit Kleinfeld. But De Palma wanted Carlito to have justice for what Kleinfeld did, which is why it's in the film. But of course, Carlito is spotted by Vincent, Tony's son, which is brought up later on. He should have just immediately taken the cash after meeting with the cops, grabbed Gel and gotten out of there. The walls were already closing in by that point. Now, we have to talk about the Benny Blanco situation. Sure, there are reasons why Carlito doesn't give Benny the satisfaction and acknowledge him. He thinks he's a young, dumb punk. He's turned off by his attitude. He has his pride and doesn't want to be seen as an equal to this guy. And Benny reminds him of himself. But Carlito was uncharacteristically rude to Benny just before things get physical. The thing is, you're saying you're out of the game, you're retired. Then act like it. Tip your hat to those who are in the game, especially the ones who are already giving you respect. It's like in The Wire. When Cutty is in the game, he speaks to Avon direct. After he leaves and wants to speak to Avon about the gym, he goes through Bodhi, because he doesn't think it's appropriate to speak to Avon directly without getting the okay. He's not in the game anymore. Similarly, Carlito is singing and dancing about how he is out, and yeah, sure, he still commands respect and isn't exactly a civilian, but he needs to start giving some respect to the up-and-comers. Acknowledge him. That may have been all Benny wanted. Feed his ego a little. Accept his champagne bottle so he can tell his little friends he broke bread with the great Carlito Brigante. Put your ego to a side. If you're out, you're out. And you have to tip your hat to those in the game, whether you like them or not. And when this situation spirals out of control, Carlito had to kill Benny. We all know this and don't need to delve too long on this part. Either accept him or whack him. Carlito did neither, and ultimately, even with all the stuff about Kleinfeld, the boat, the Italians, it was Benny who got Carlito in the end, because he didn't kill him. Symbolized with the scene where Carlito traps a cockroach, but lets it go. It was in his power and he screwed it up. Another error. He completely ignores Souza's comments about Pachanga possibly spying for Benny Blanco. He doesn't investigate it or anything. Even after hearing this, he gets Pachanga to go with Gail to the train station, when she could have easily done her stuff by herself. Make it a secret affair if there's no one else you can trust as a bodyguard. He just didn't see that Pachanga would betray him, because he couldn't see how Pachanga would think of him as weak after the Lalin and Benny Blanco incidents. He stopped being able to see all the angles. Carlito could have also accepted the deal he was offered. Obviously he would never, he's no Henry Hill, but what did he have to lose by that point? He knew Kleinfeld planned to sell him out and stole money from the mob. Why not send his ass to jail? He and Gail would have been home free in the Bahamas, all expenses paid. Sure, the cops could screw him over, but it wouldn't be as bad as getting killed. Going back to the hospital scene, it's rather ironic that emptying Kleinfeld's gun actually did Carlito in. He takes the bullets out, knowing the mob will be coming for Dave, but when Vincent does appear, Kleinfeld gets to his gun first, but he doesn't have any bullets. Had he taken the shot and taken Vincent out, it's highly unlikely the mob would still investigate Carlito, as the main suspect was dead and it was Vincent who was most out for blood. Obviously, this doesn't stop Benny killing Carlito, but it could have solved the issue with the Italians. But this is all about hindsight. I don't think we can really blame Carlito for this one. And when the Italians do finally show up, I appreciate Carlito was under immense pressure, but he could have handled the situation differently, even come clean. There's no telling if it would have saved him, but at least don't lie about being at the hospital when you saw Vincent there, and who may have, and did, see you. Don't say I haven't seen the lawyer in a long time. Say I just saw him at the hospital, but don't mention the boat incident. The lie is what cements things. It's why Vincent says, I seen him at the hospital, Pete, and the other guy says, we'll take him outside. Carlito perfectly analysed the situation in the internal monologue, deciding the mobsters weren't sure about his guilt. They wanted to see if he cracks and gives himself away. But instead of playing it cool, he does just that and increases their suspicion, and that's all they need. Maybe even act happy that Kleinfeld got. Tell him he just found out that he was a rat who was going to send him back inside, and whoever did that lawyer did him a favour and he wants to send him flowers. Maybe you go even further and say he took the bullet out of his gun after confirming he wanted to sell him out. Vincent could have confirmed this because he'd known Kleinfeld tried to shoot him first but no bullets came out. It would have clicked with him. Boom! And this may have saved Carlito from the Italians because they would have known he was not on the lawyer's side. But Carlito decides to run from the club, and surely they'd track him down eventually. Even if they didn't get him there and then, he'd live his life always looking over his shoulder, his past haunting him. And after he was basically responsible for the death of 4 made guys at the train station, the mob would have definitely been after him, and they would surely eventually find him. Remember how in Casino they found a guy living out in Costa Rica? And finally, when at the train station, Carlito could have gone to the cops and said this guy's after him. Not ideal, I know. After all, he also had a piece on him. But if he was lucky, he could have maybe gotten an escort on the train, and Benny Blanco from the Bronx would have missed his chance. Of course, Carlito would never go to the cops. He's old school, but that was part of the problem. So all in all, though thematically, Carlito's death may have been inevitable, there were key mistakes the man made which meant his fate was preventable. And it can be summed up by simply saying Carlito should have gone back into the life all the way, or stayed out of it all the way. His half-in, half-out philosophy ruined him in the end. So what do you make of Carlito and the decisions he made? Do you agree that he made several blunders? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.